Hi, I'm Mikko from the Hertzen Brothers, and we are here to discuss a special feature that we have on our new album, Red Alert in the Blue Forest. We are in Sanctum Sanctorum here in Helsinki at a workspace where our producer James Spectrum mixed the album, and we are going to dive deep into a song called Northern Lights, because in that song we actually have the actual sounds of the Northern Lights. So how did we end up actually getting those sounds, and from where we got those actual sounds?
When I heard about the idea of the song and the name of the song, I kind of had this memory, because I've been looking for strange sounds and instruments for such a long time, for like almost like 2 decades, and I remember having read about some guy who's been recording Northern Lights. I did some searching and found out that it's actually a professor called Laine.
Yeah.
And I got in touch with Unto, and he was first really curious about the project, especially because he has music background, and then he started explaining about the history of his research of Northern Lights. So he's actually been working on the idea of recording, studying Northern Lights for I think it's almost like 20 years.
Wow.
And he didn't originally get any financing for it, and there was basically no support for this subject. He just heard these folk stories about that people have heard sounds during the Northern Lights when they appeared.
Right.
And he spent something like closer to 200,000 euros of his own money to build this huge recording setup, and did lots and lots of recordings. And he was actually the first one who he got this like super sensitive measurement microphones, much quieter than anything in even the best studio microphones are way worse than that.
Right.
So he got this like super quiet recording setup. It's actually so quiet that he's got the microphones, and then this sort of like parabolic mirror that captures sounds, that if there's a single bird flying high up in the sky, the microphone can actually hear the sounds of the wings.
Wow.
Yeah. So he spent a lot of time on the subject, and he is the one who actually has captured the first ever, and I think they might still be the only ones that are the only Northern Light recordings that are scientifically accepted and reported scientifically. And he's been interviewed by CNN and BBC. Lots of newspapers have written articles about his studies.
Yeah. So we were really exceptionally lucky to get those sounds for this album, because it's not like he's a scientific guy, and he's not like his research is his research.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's like, if he's kind of like basically the only guy who has been able to capture those sounds on our planet. We would think that he would like keep that to himself, but we were so lucky to get these sounds on his album.
He actually does that. There's quite a few people have been asking about the sounds, and especially if they come from like business or even the scientific community. Like, I think Nobel Foundation wanted to use his sounds, and he's like, it's going to be really expensive.
Wow.
But here he was because he actually has experimental music background. He released something like, I think it was something in the early 70s, a really crazy album, and because this is an a music project, he liked the idea. Although first he said no.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Because he heard your music, and he was like, this is excellent, but this is like loud rock music, so there's no way you can kind of hear his beautiful recordings there.
Right.
And then I explained that okay, you do the loud stuff too, but you do some really beautiful orchestral stuff, and this has beautiful dynamics. It starts with really kind of like a space sounds, atmospheric sounds, and that his recordings would be perfect for the beginning. And he was like, may I hear it? And then I sent him a little clip of the intro, and he was like, well, this actually sounds pretty good. So
yeah, Did he tell you like how many times he had to go into the wilderness to be able to actually capture these sounds?
Yeah, he's been doing it many times. He's got I think like hundreds of hours of recordings, and it's every time it's sort of it's same with Northern Lights. You never know when they're going to be happening.
Yeah.
So he's been doing it's usually like up in the north, like in Lapland and the Goli area in the eastern Finland, and during it needs to be winter. It needs to be really cold.
Really cold.
Yeah. And he's got this theory about the sounds because the Northern Lights, they happen really high, like I think it's something like 100 kilometers up to 1,000 kilometers up in there.
Right.
But these sounds actually appear much lower, and he's got this theory that there's something like magnetic bursts that happen only like 100 meters above the ground that are creating those sounds. Here are some of the sounds.
So it's like a cracking.
Yeah, there are different types of sounds. He classified them. These are the crackles, and then there's the, and then there's sort of almost like hand claps. And then we have let's see what. And there's this sort of whispers.
Yeah.
And then let's see what's that with this one. Yeah, those sort of
that's
claps.
Kind of like
claps. Yeah. And then I used my tape echo here. This is like a turbo version of, because I want to have some space sound. So this is like a turbo version of the Roland Space Echo.
Yeah.
So I added some tape echo there to kind of to add more of a space feeling to the sounds. And they work really well with Jonne's synthesizer sounds. And that synthesizer is really, to me, like a wilderness sound, like really open area. And here comes the third one. Another one. And that's when actually launching the synthesizer.
Yeah.
And now comes the clap,
So yeah, I mean that's it, folks. I mean this is what we did on this track, and check it out. Actual Sounds of Northern Lights by James Spectrum and the von Hertzen Brothers, and of course Aalto University, the magician himself.